you've got a very expansive dancing career. Like you started out doing salsa, and now you're doing a lot of competing, and then you've also got a very strong influence in like the artistic direction of dance,
Mm-hmm.
and moving away from the competition side, and now you're doing the this show in New York.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to give dancers advice on how to improve, like what three tips would you give dancers to work on?
Mm. I love that question. When it comes to any, any dance really is focus on the fundamentals, period, period. And I feel very strongly about that part of the fundamentals in the dances that we're choosing to do, which are, you know, Latin dance, when we're talking about salsa, bachata, merengue, cha-cha-cha, um, kizomba, zouk, all of these things are very deeply culturally and historically rooted in African-based music and dance. And I think that it's really important to also, as you're training movement fundamentals, to have a very, at least a base understanding of the history and the culture that you're representing, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to recognize that this is not my culture, you know, and it's something that I am privileged and being invited to participate in. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
have you know, we are visitors here, and we can make it our home. You know, we can love it in a way that also um, represents it and respects it well. And so that's something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm very passionate about in these deeply culturally rooted dances. I think that that is part of your foundational learning. But when we're talking movement based, foundations, foundations, foundations. Don't worry about the flashy stuff, because that will come naturally. And if you really focus on the foundations, you'll actually develop stronger as a dancer. And then you will start to see your voice come out in its own flashy way sooner than if
Mm-hmm.
you start copying all of the other flashy stuff that people are doing, you know, and then have to go back to your foundations. So again,
Mm-hmm.
really worrying about the foundations of your dance, including, you know, culture and history, um, having a base understanding of that. Second, I would say cross train, right? Um, I think that that has been something that has really been important to my dancing, is having a, a little bit of cross training in things like ballet. Um, while it's completely different in terms of movement and history and culture, it has helped me in my stage and competition stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for salsa, it's not really cross training nowadays. It's kind of part of your training. But for example, I have been training really deeply in Afro Cuban for the last like 5 years
Mm-hmm.
in New York City, because I have the privilege of having a whole bunch of amazing instructors there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's like kind of cross training, but again, it's also kind of like the foundations, the roots, and the whole the history and the culture,
Mm-hmm.
um, that will give you a much stronger base as a salsa dancer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then last is like really do the inner work to figure out what your purpose for dancing is, like what brings
Mm-hmm.
you to dance, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
are no wrong answers there. If your purpose for dancing is picking up girls or picking up guys or whatever, great. Then
Mm-hmm.
you know how to, you know, plan the trajectory of your dance life, right?
Uh-huh.
So if we know why we're doing something, then we can maybe accomplish it a little bit better. If you really want to compete, then seek out instructors, mentors, coaches who know about that and can guide
Mm-hmm.
you in that, right? And then you train appropriately for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to use, if you want to join dance theater or Broadway, then you know you need to go take some theater dance classes, right? Some theater jazz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Training in jazz has really helped me in my cross training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, yeah, I don't know. I think knowing what you want from dance and why you dance, and that's a lifelong journey, and it can
Mm-hmm.
change. But that can really help you kind of maneuver your way through. your dance life.
Hmm. Has what you just explained then, has that been very real for you? Like that, is that sort of the path that you've tried to follow like over time? And obviously you don't know everything back then what you know now. So have you come about this sort of methodology based off trial and error and your own experiences?
100%. I it's not to say that I didn't have a good foundation when I started, but I didn't have a good foundation when I started. That sounds horrible. In certain things, I certainly did. In other things, I've had to kind of like go back and relearn. And I also think that that's part of the process as well. I
Hmm.
think in salsa, the culture of learning salsa and Latin dance nowadays is very, very superficial. It's very 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Great, you learned your basic. Let's move on.
Hmm.
And and my I've like really actually this quarantine has really helped me kind of fine tune my teaching methodology.
Hmm.
And I'm just really not for that
Mm.
type of like 1, 2, 3, let's go. And but again, those I think maybe those teachers are important as well because they kind of bring in the masses, right?
Hmm.
And get people hooked.
Yeah.
And then I like to work with people. I like to work with everybody, but I'm really passionate about teaching people that like really want to go back and work on their foundational
Hmm.
movement, right? Um, and I promise you, if you're learning from me, you're going to be introduced to some of those like foundational historical and cultural themes as well because like I said I'm super passionate about that and even more so nowadays with everything that this country is going through
Hmm.
it's super important to recognize how injustice against black people has everything to do with salsa,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Salsa is a
absolutely.
dance that is born of colonization,
Hmm.
right? So you cannot take away slavery from the history of salsa. You cannot take colonization. You cannot take oppression of black people away from the history of salsa. And so you have to recognize that. I think it's a responsibility of Latin dance instructors to recognize that
Mm.
and I don't know. It's a lot going on right now, and it's something that we were talking about the trajectory of our dance lives, and mine has changed like 15 times in my in my dance career, and I'm going through another change right now. Kind of what I was telling you before. I've been through since December or the end of last year. I ended my partnership with Robert Rosario for very very clear reasons.
Hmm.
Because I won't support a person like that. It's another story for another time, but
Mm.
he's without it sounding like gossip, I can't enable a person like that.
Mm.
And so I ended my partnership with him, which was kind of the beginning of my change in my dance career,
Hmm.
which automatically means I'm not going to get invited to as many congresses. So that's
Right.
change number one, right? Because now I'm going from being known as a partnered dancer to
Dancer.
being solo.
Yeah.
Then I joined this show and
Hmm.
got more deeply invested in that. And so that's another change in my career where I'm now wanting to kind of take this different approach to dance and include acting. And then now like I don't know. I think all of this is happening for a reason because number one, like I took a stand against my partner last year.
Hmm.
And that was like the beginning of using my dancing in a way that is meaningful to me, right? And making sure that I stand for something as a human and as a
Hmm.
dancer, right? And I think that both of these issues, if we're talking about harmful and violent individuals in the dance community, uh, and then violent and harmful institutions in the world and in the dance community as we
Hmm.
see them, um, you know, I'm not going to stand for that. And I want to use my
Mm.
dancing and my platform to kind of publicly
Reflect you.
be against those things and do what I
Mm.
can to create change, right?
Hmm.
I have to admit that I am a white woman who is benefiting from an African diasporic dance, right? And
Hmm.
music and culture. And I am incredibly privileged to be a part of this.
Mm.
And I can't abuse that, right? So I have to do my part in in both upholding this history and this culture by the way that I teach, and
Mm-hmm.
also fighting for change, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the oppression of the very people that created this culture.
Mm.
So